Hello and welcome to our third video for creating Alteryx Adventure from scratch. In this video, in the previous video we stopped when we created our SharePoint list. And what we'll be doing in this video is creating a Power Automate flow that on a response to the form, it will take the response details and then populate the this SharePoint list so that we can capture the responses from the form in a SharePoint list, and we can access that data through other programs like Alteryx later on down the track as well. So what we'll do is we'll open Power Automate. And then what we want to do is we want to create a flow from scratch. So I'm just going to click on the create button, and I'm just going to hit select a start from blank, and I want an automated cloud flow. And in the name, you can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it Adventure Flow. And as a trigger, I want it to be when a new response is submitted via Microsoft Forms. If this doesn't come up for you, you can search for the trigger as well. So I can select that and hit create. And now I'm in a Power Automate flow editor. And what I want to do now is to enter my form ID into this tool when a new response is submitted. So I can click the drop down box, but it's not going to find anything for me. So instead I'm going to enter a custom value. And now what I need to provide is the form ID of the MS form itself. And the way that we can find the form ID is by opening our form, finding the form itself, and then the form ID is in the URL up here. So we can see that we've got form ID equals, and then we've got this BI, this string here, starting with BI. So I'm just going to copy that entire string and paste it into the custom value here. And then for my next step, I want to get that response detail. So I'm just going to search for get response and get response details. Here we go. And then I need to add my form ID again. So I'm just going to go enter custom value and paste that string, the form ID, in again. And then in the response ID, I want to click on that box, and it will open this dynamic content box. And here I want to select response ID. So basically what this is telling Power Automate to do is that whenever there's a new response, to get the response's details, and now that we have that response's details, we want to do something with those details. One of the challenges that we face with this flow, and particularly with the screenshot upload, the data that we get out of that is a JSON field data. And if we just put that form, that JSON data into SharePoint, we're not going to be able to easily create a URL that's linkable during the approval step. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a condition that will basically check and see whether or not that screenshot URL field is present. And if it is, we want to pass out the URL from the JSON, just so that we get the link from the JSON, and then we can create the item as normal. So what I'm going to do here is I want to put in a condition tool. So I can just select condition. And now what I want to do is I want to test to see whether or not that SharePoint screenshot URL field or question is populated or not. So the easiest way for me to do that is with an expression, and the expression will be not empty, if I could spell empty, and then in the dynamic content, if we click on there, what we want to do, why am I not getting that data? I'm not getting that. Sorry, I just had to change my connection there so that the account that I'm using to connect has access to that form. So now my dynamic data is getting the fields from the form itself. So now, just going back to where we were, we want to check and see whether that screenshot URL question is empty or not. So we're going to go not empty, and then in the dynamic content we can scroll down here and select the upload a screen grab. And so now when we hit OK, that field will basically give me a true or false as to whether or not that field is empty. And then in here in the expression after the is equal to, I just want to search in here and search for true. And if I hit OK, then that's basically just performing that logical check for me. Now, what will happen is down this yes flow, we'll get all of the responses that have that screenshot field populated. So now what we want to do is to pass that field out. So I'm just going to add a new tool, and in here I'm just going to look for pass JSON. And it's just this pass JSON data operation. And now I need to instruct the JSON tool what the content will look like. Or what the field I want to pass is. And I'm just going to select please upload the screen grab question. And now in the schema, I'm just going to paste the schema values that's provided in the Excel spreadsheet that's got the field mapping. And basically all this is doing is instructing Power Automate what is the structure of the JSON field that we're expecting. So now that I've pasted that string in there, I can add another action. And on this action, I want to create an item in a SharePoint list. So I'm just going to search for create item and select create item SharePoint. I'll select that as well. And again, I'm going to change my connection from this service account into my own account, just because my service account the service account doesn't currently have access to the site that I'm using for this demo. But you should use a service account instead. So in here, in this drop-down box, there'll be a list of the sites that your connection has access to. And I know that it's in the Jon and Fee workspace, so I'm going to select that one. and then I can select this drop down box and select the Alteryx Adventure List drop down as well. And now what that will do is it will go and query SharePoint and extract the fields that are possible to be filled out in that list. And we can see the descriptions coming through of those fields as well. So in here, I'm just going to populate these values. So I'm going to put in the form ID, I just want the response ID. In the form submit date, the submission time. In the email, I want this to be the responder's email. The challenge completed is the please choose the challenge you have completed question. The screenshot URL. Now, on this one, rather than selecting the field, we instead want to get the first value out of the parse JSON that the tool that we created earlier. So what I'm going to do in expression is I'm just going to type first and then open the brackets, and then in dynamic content, I'm going to select body out of the parse JSON tool. And then at the end, I want to instruct it what field do I want out of that parse JSON. So at the end, I'm just going to add a question mark and then a square bracket, a quote mark, and then just type in link and then single quote again. And so basically what this is saying is I want to get the first value in the body of the parse JSON field that we've created up here, and the specific field that I'm looking for is called link. So I can hit OK, and that's filled out correctly. And now I can just fill out the rest of these selections as well. So in link URL, I want to select please provide a URL link to your post. In level of certification, I want to select the certification question. The same with difficulty of challenge. Select the difficulty of challenge question. And then the last one that we'll fill out is a challenge comments as well. And then please share your feedback, so the challenge comments as well. So that is now going to populate correctly when we submit a response that has a screen grab URL. And what we now need to do is, fill out the other part of this, the false part of this condition check. And basically what we can do is we can click on this ellipsis and we can go copy to clipboard, to my clipboard. And then in the false part of the condition check, we can add an action. And I'm just going to select my clipboard and then select that create item element. And essentially what that's done is just copied and pasted what we'd selected earlier. Now, the only thing that we need to change on here is we need to get rid of this function and instead just replace it with the screen grab question. And we know that it will always be empty when it comes through here, but just to ensure that something funky hasn't happened, we'll add it in here as well. So now the flow is complete, and we can save and test this flow itself. So I'm going to hit the save button. and then it says that my flow is ready to go and where we recommend you test it. For us to be able to test it, we actually need to turn on the flow. So when I hit that back button, it's taken me back to the flow itself, and now I'm getting this pop-up basically saying that the flow is ready to go, and it's telling me that it's now turned on. So I can just acknowledge that and hit the got it, confirm that it's turned on with this selection here. And now what I can do is I can hit the edit again and hit the test button. And basically in here, I want to test the flow manually by submitting a response for the trigger. So I'll hit that button and I'll hit the test button. And basically what this will do is it will wait for a response to be submitted to the form. So now what I'll do is I'll open up the form. I'll get the share list. I'll copy the form URL. I'll just open a new browser, paste that in, and now fill out a form. So the first thing that I want to test is to make sure that that screen grab URL is being passed correctly when it's provided. So I'm just going to select getting started learning path and then upload a file. And this could be any image at all. So I'm just going to select a generic image that I've got. Hit the upload button, and I'm also wanting to test my feedback. So I'm just going to do the obligatory hello world test, and then hit submit. So once this is submitted, I get this prompt saying that the response was submitted. And if I go back to the flow in Power Automate, I can see that the flow ran successfully. I can then expand this and see the data that I get at each step. So in the get response details, you can see that I've gotten the correct challenge that I selected. You can see my hello world test. You can see the JSON that you would get from that screen grab as well. And that's the thing that we need to pass. In the condition, that condition evaluated to be true, which is correct because that field is populated. In the pass JSON, we can see that it's passed that JSON as we expect it to. And then in create item, we can see that it's created an item in the Alteryx Adventure list. It's populated the form ID as 1. It's got the submit date. It's got my email address that I submitted it from. It's populated the challenge completed. And it's also populated just the link to the image upload itself. And you can also see that it's populated the comments as well. Which is fantastic. So on the surface, it looks like it's done everything correctly. And we can also check our SharePoint list itself, and here that response is. And if I click on this item, I can copy that URL, and I can see whatever that image was that I uploaded. So a generic your company logo image. So that's fantastic. The form itself has worked. We have tested our flow and confirmed that the flow is extracting the data that we expect it to. We've tested that this expression evaluates as true when that field is populated. We can also see that we're passing the JSON as we expect to, and we can see that we're also uploading it into SharePoint, and we've confirmed that it's been successfully uploaded as well. So that's it for this video. In the next video, what we'll be looking at is how to trigger an approval flow from this, so that we can review the submissions that have been submitted and populate the approved and the approver's commentary fields in the SharePoint list as well, so that Alteryx knows which ones have been approved and which ones haven't, so that it can run its calculations and figure out who's got what badge and the challenges that they've completed. So I look forward to seeing you in the next one.